coming to you. Oh, hey, check it out. I'm on a boat. Woo! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Fuck your stupid mouth! Hey! Get out of the way! Hey, I'm yours, buddy! Hey, don't forget to hit like and subscribe and drop a comment down below. Welcome aboard the RSS commentary. I am your host, Captain Cale McCollough, and in today's top story, Joe Magoo Biden cuts funding for red states from his big bill, and he shifts the money over to Obamacare. President China Joe Beijing Biden, the one whose crackhead son, Hunter Biden, takes millions of dollars from the Chinese and from the corrupt Burisma Ukrainian energy firm. He plans to pay for some of the massive spending that his cronies want to do to loot the general public and to make their buddies wealthy while they're spending all of the money from Uncle Sam in his empty, bottomless pockets. He needs to now pay for his spending addiction, his social welfare state, and his Green New Deal by cutting billions of dollars now from the hospitals in the red states. The plan punishes the 12 red states that haven't expanded Medicare by slashing $3.4 billion with the B in federal funding for hospitals to treat the poor. Instead, the money goes towards a $73.9 billion expansion of the Affordable Care Act. It's extremely punitive to the hospitals that have been on the front lines, and quote, said Mary Meow, president of the Florida Hospital Association. I probably did not say that right. It's Mayhew. It's Meow. Florida is one of the 12 states where Mr. Biden and congressional Democrats propose to cut funding for hospitals that treat people who don't have insurance or use Medicaid. The government program for the poor doesn't fully reimburse hospitals for Medicare. In other top news from the Daily Mail, classified JFK assassination files have been released. Over 1,500 documents. The National Archives will publish files online at noon on Wednesday. They have been kept secret. Sorry. It's a little bit cut off. Since 1997, when the government... I think I need to... Right. Sorry about that. Since the government concluded its investigation into JFK's death, I personally subscribe to the theory that Lyndon B. Johnson was working with the communists, because the timeline goes that JFK was opposed to taking our troops into Vietnam. He was fighting the communists here at home, and Lyndon B. Johnson was right. So how does the So right after the JFK assassination, they did that Gulf of Tonkin incident, and then they did the false flag invasion of Vietnam, brought us into the Vietnam War. Then Lyndon B. Johnson did the war on drugs, and then people nowadays think that it was Reagan that started the war on drugs, but Reagan actually just coined the term war on drugs. But it was actually started by the racist KKK Democrats who wanted to target the non-whites in order to prop up their racist power structure, because Democrats have a very long history of white supremacy. They are definitely white supreme pizzas. And so a lot of people are completely unaware of how much influence Stalin had. You've probably heard of a person named Joseph McCarthy. Joseph McCarthy got something named after him called McCarthyism, which most people think is bad, because Joseph McCarthy, in the end, he disobeyed some orders because he was very anti-communist. It was something about China. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. But he grew out of favor because people just thought he was paranoid. They were targeting, it was the Red Scare. They were worried that the communists were going to take over. And turns out that he was actually right. The communists were actually taking over, and they had spies in the White House at the time. The entire network had been compromised all the way from the bottom up. There's these people who believe in socialism so much they're willing to betray their own country and die for the cause of socialism, which is one of the things that makes it so dangerous, is that they are anti-capitalist and they really, really, really hate the right. They hate the people who are in the existing power structure because they think that it is rotten, because they're the rich capitalists have it rigged. And then they utilize stuff like anti-Semitism, and they reuse the same story, only then they put white people in place of the Jews. They say that they, the racist, white supreme pizza Trump supporters living out there in middle America, they are the ones who are causing all the problems in the big Democrat cities where the demagogues need to get elected at. Because if they did not do that, then the demagogues would have to face up to the fact that they've been destroying the big cities with their failed Democrat policies, and then, but they can't do that. So instead, they put out rhetoric where they, over time, they put out so much of this propaganda that they start to believe this stuff. And then they become brainwashed. And then they're willing to do stuff like assassinate the president, which is what I think happened here, is that there was a network of communists that had connections that were going all the way up to Lyndon B. Johnson, and that Lyndon B. Johnson got JFK whacked. It's my own personal opinion. I'm entitled to it. Yo, everything that you see from the RSS news articles from these legit sources, that's the news. Everything else is just my own opinion. Moving on to this next article here from Fox News. Average person just as smart as rocket scientist and neurosurgeon study finds. The average person is comparatively just as intelligent as a rocket scientist and neurosurgeon, according to a Brain Book study titled, quote, "It's not rocket science," and quote, "It's not brain surgery," and quote, "It's a walk in the park," and quote, I would definitely agree with you. I am a computer scientist and engineer, and from what I found is that it's not necessarily the people who do very well at the beginning who end up doing the best. It's the people who put in that hard work and determination and who make a regular routine about what they're doing, because they design these math classes so that people can pass them, so that a normal person can learn the thing and then like do some repetition, and then you take some tests, you learn it, and then you can do that too. I definitely would advise you thoroughly to get into science, technology, engineering, and math. I will warn you, it is a little bit like smoking crack cocaine. It may consume your life. Next thing you know, you might be a STEM addict. Moving on to this next article here from Fox News. Chicago area teen guilty of murdering 15-year-old boy during a drug deal gets probation. The Chicago, a teenager in Chicago suburb who pled guilty to fatally stabbing a 15-year-old in 2020 was sentenced to probation and community service. It's because it would be too racist to put this person in prison, because the Democrats can't stand the 1994 crime bill and the results of the failed Democrat policies in the big cities that's causing all this crime and drug addiction and misogyny and fatherless homes and addiction to government handouts and all the murders, all the rapes, all the robberies going down in the hood. And then they want to say that if you say anything about it, that you are a racist, because how dare you question the narrative that white supremacists are the reason why the black people aren't up here learning science, technology, engineering, math with all the nerds. Really, we got to look at this problem here that we got is a fundamental breakdown of the public school system. You've got these failed public schools run by these failed teachers unions that they don't fire the bad apple teachers. They just shift them around like Miss Appleby's, the substitute teacher that they pull out of the closet every once in a while whenever the other teacher is wanting extra time off, doesn't feel like coming into work. So Miss Appleby comes out every once in a while. She's like, "My name is Mrs. Appleby, and I'm here to teach the kids socialism today. There's this guy named Karl Marx, and he's got this book. It's the Communist Manifesto. We're going to learn all about communism today, kids." And, next thing you know, like the kid, the people are up in the hood all wanting to get to be famous rappers, or they want to be an Instagram influencer, or they want to be a model, which is code word for I do some porn with my boyfriends. I got an OnlyFans page. And they don't want to settle down. They don't want to be a mom. So they go out to these parties and they hook up with these super sketchy dudes. And then dudes end up knocking them up because they don't want to wear a condom. And then they're not focused, they're talking hella shit about nerds instead of programming computers. They're out having sex with lots of random women, selling drugs, going out to the club, and then they scream to the top of their lungs that the system is racist after they shot somebody in a drug deal or stabbed them to death in this case. And if you call out about it, then you're a white supreme pizza, You're part of this white power structure that is oppressing the minorities and the women. And the reason why is because these people will come up whenever they use this rhetoric. The attacks work because good people aren't like that. And so good people will say, sure, let's stop the bad guys. And then meanwhile, the city just starts burning down. It's getting out of control over there. The mayor looks just like Beetlejuice. Moving on to this next article here from Fox News. Chinese and Iranian hackers exploit Log4j computer flaw affecting hundreds of millions of users. Here, wait, I'm supposed to do this. Yeah. Kind of messed that up. I was supposed to do that earlier. Sorry. Security pros say one of the worst computer vulnerabilities they ever seen has been exploited by state-backed Chinese and Iranian hackers, rogue cryptocurrency miners, and others. I read an article earlier today that some cryptocurrency miner had hacked their Gmail account and had ran up about $47,000 worth of cryptocurrency mining fees. So watch out. You should use the two-factor authentication. I think the USB thumb drive thing is the best way to go about doing it with your PC. The phone is still susceptible to hacking, more so than the thumb drive, which is why they say that, it's the default settings. Where's the mouse? Here in this next article from Fox News, NFL raises eyebrows by labeling Taiwan as part of China. On Wednesday, the Nazi Football League announced that 18 of its teams, quote, had been granted access to 26 international home marketing areas, or IHMA, across 8 different countries, and, quote, as part of a plan to give the teams, quote, access to ... to give them access to international territories for marketing, fan engagement, and commercialization. This is the exact same problem with Hollywood. Okay, Hollywood has been making most of their money in China, and they've been censoring the movies for the Chinese audience because they're making most of their money in China. So we're kind of secondary. And so the same thing's going on here with the Nazi Football League. I mean, the National Football League. They care more about that foreign money because, Xi Jinping's got that slave labor. They're using that Xinjiang, Uyghur, Muslim slave labor, child labor, the cotton in your jeans picked by a Uyghur child who's in a forced re-education camp. So every single time you put on your jeans, you should now hear the commercial. The touch of Xinjiang cotton, it feels like genocide. But they don't really care because money is king to these people. They will sell us out because they make more money in China. They would rather appease their Chinese communist fans because they're paying the capitalist business more money than they would to back up our friends over there in Taiwan. China's been being an absolute bully. They've been destabilizing the region with their aggressive bullying. They've been dumping products on our markets. You'll notice that in some industries, there's a lot of dirt cheap products. And that's because the Chinese have been targeting certain businesses because they want to compete in those areas. Anything hardware related, If it's got silicon in it, they're trying to dominate that space. And so they dump products. They've been dumping a lot of products in Australia, dumping a lot of products on Amazon. Jeff Bezos is going cha-ching. I can't say that I'm not actually also too going cha-ching from all those Amazon warehouse deals, but I'm going to have to say dealing with the load of boxes on my porch from Amazon is definitely a hassle. When I think about all the products that I've returned from Amazon that were made from Chinese slave labor, probably in Xinjiang by a child, a Uyghur Muslim child, in a forced re-education concentration camp, learning about that Marxism or whatever. They got a new strand of Marxism over there in Nazi China, over there where the dictator looks a lot like Winnie the Pooh. But don't tell him that, because he might get mad. He doesn't like it when you call him Winnie the Pooh, because he's got thin skin, and they banned Winnie the Pooh from China. And when I was making this episode, I was downloading some Pooh Bears off the internet, and then I went to some sketchy site that looked like it was Chinese, and then I downloaded a Pooh Bear, and then poof, all the Pooh Bears were gone off my computer. So I don't know whether or not the Chinese government hacked my computer to delete my Pooh Bears. The world will never know. But we should definitely be boycotting the genocide Olympics over there in Nazi China. They're using that slave labor with these capitalist businesses where the Chinese Communist Party is living high off the hog while the Chinese people are living in poverty. They're squatting, they poop in pit toilets, the kind that you can fall into that smell really bad, and there's never any toilet paper. And then the Chinese Communist Party members, they like to take all of the money and they like to move it overseas, hide it in bank accounts, in real estate, and in businesses, and doing all these sketchy transactions to bring the money back on the books. And then if we talk anything about any schmack about them, then they're going to come down on us. They're going to threaten to nuke us. They're going to threaten to trade embargo us. They're going to dump their products on our markets. And then the NFL is just totally down with it. All they want is money. Money, 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 money. They don't care. Genocide Olympics is totally cool with them as long as they're the stars. As long as you got the Nazi Football League over there in the Genocide Olympics, then it's all cool, right? Moving on to this next article from the Nonsense Private Radio. 800,000 Americans have died from the COVID. Now the U.S. embraces for the Omicron, aka G variant, fueled spike. If you're unfamiliar, they did not name it the G, as in Greek letter G, variant, like they were supposed to, because they did not want to offend the dictator of Nazi China, Winnie the Pooh, who looks like Xi Jinping. So they instead called it Omicron. They said it's this dangerous thing and you need to be scared. And all of the big media put out fear propaganda nonstop, saying you gotta get your booster shots. Can't just do 3 boosters. You gotta get 4 boosters. You gotta mix and match, bro. And turned out to be a complete dud. It had a high infection rate and a low death rate, low hospitalization rate. And as I've been saying the entire time, these vaccines work really good for people who are at risk in that demographic. If you are overweight and over the average age of death, then it would probably be a good idea to get the vaccine, because let's be real, probably not going to be having more babies anyways. So what the hell, natural selection, who needs it, right? But the death rate is not the same thing as the infection rate. The nature provides us with natural vaccines in the form of less lethal forms of these diseases that have a higher infection rate and a lower death and hospitalization rate, because this is just how evolution goes. Whenever you get a novel virus, you got three options. First option is that it's going to get extremely deadly and it's going to kill a whole bunch of people. Second option is it's just going to kind of be the same. Third option is that it's going to get less deadly, and then it'll transfer asymptomatically and spread asymptomatically, and then it will just be like the common cold. And COVID is probably going to be like the flu. Even if we had 250 deaths per 100,000 deaths, we would then be capped off at about 1 million deaths. We're hitting 800,000 deaths. We're getting pretty close to that, and the pandemic is fizzling out. So these numbers pan out pretty good. After we've been infected once, then our risk of hospitalization and death is very low. I've been saying this the entire time over and over again. I sound like a broken record saying over and over and over again the same thing, because that's what the science says. The science says our immune system works just fine. We don't need vaccines for the flu. We need to lose weight. We need to exercise, because the way that, and then also we need to stop disinfecting the surfaces, because if we get infected by touching the surface, then we have minimized our viral load. So as for me, myself, and I, when I get infected, I want to minimize the viral load. So doing things like wiping down the counters all the time is going to cause one thing. It's going to cause superbugs. And then on top of that, it's going to make it so that when you get infected, you're going to have a higher risk of being hospitalized and dying, because you didn't get it from touching a surface and then touching your mouth and having the minimal amount of viral load that you possibly can. So don't listen to hold on. Listen to your doctor. Don't listen to some crackpots on YouTube. Don't listen to the big media, because these people are lying to you. They got their own political agenda. Moving on to this next article here from the Daily Mail. At least 7 North Koreans have been executed for watching or sharing K-pop, report claims. Kim Jong-un, North Korea's dictator, has previously described the genre as a vicious cancer, with the executions coming as part of the crackdown on the music. Here in this next article from Newsweek, China threat over Taiwan, a, quote, dire challenge, end quote, to all, warns Japan's Shinzo Abe. Abe's remarks come 2 weeks after he sparked a minor diplomatic incident by sharing identical views in a similar setting. If you're unfamiliar, Shinzo Abe used to be the Prime Minister of Japan, and he said that we need to back we need to back Taiwan, because Taiwan are our homies. Taiwan is the authentic Chinese culture. The Chinese Nazi Party, aka the Chinese Communist Party, they murdered the authentic Chinese culture in the cultural de-evolution, aka cultural evolution. And so they fled to the island of Taiwan. The People's Republic of China was the original ruler of China, and they fled to Taiwan. And then the People's Republic of China, there's the Republic of China, which is Taiwan, and then the People's Republic of China, which is the fake Chinese government that's not the actual authentic Chinese culture, because they killed the Chinese culture because they're commies and they were in the Marxist cult. They were under the control of the mobs that were murdering people in the street. They were just like Antifa. And they so they fled to Taiwan, which is a impenetrable or nearly impenetrable fortress of an island. And they set up their own democratically elected government. They got their own military. They have their own culture, their own way of life. They are in no way connected to the People's Republic of China. The true rulers of China are, in fact, the Republic of China, aka Taiwan, because they are the real authentic Chinese culture. And the Chinese Nazi Party does not have any legitimacy because they were murderers. We just don't need to give them legitimacy unless we want to. Here in this next article from Fox News, DeSantis, Biden effectively running a human smuggling operation with secret flights into Florida. He's also running a narcotics smuggling operation too. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis appeared on the Ingram Angle on Monday to discuss his office's report that over 70 nighttime flights moving migrants from the border landed in Jacksonville since the summer. Because you can't just say that Biden is only harboring illegal immigrants, basically paying them to illegally migrate here, opening up our borders, and then the cartels took over. They're raping the women that are coming across the border. They're smuggling in enough fentanyl every single month to kill everyone in America. And Biden is not only running a human smuggling operation, Biden is also running a narcotics trafficking operation, because the two are tied. Because the cartels are using the migrant children as decoys. They get the Border Patrol busy with groups of migrants with children. And then while they do that, the cartel then smuggles in enough fentanyl to kill everyone that you know. Biden does not care about this because he just wants to get access to the Latinos' children, because the Democrats keep blowing all this money that they need more people to pay the bill for all this corruption and government waste. And they also cannot stand the way that the white people vote. So they want to pack the U.S. electorate using the open border policies so they could get the Latinos' children to vote blue no matter who, by getting them juiced up on government handouts. Once you get the Latinos addicted to the government handouts, to the socialism, then the children will then vote blue no matter who, and the United States will then be a communist country. Our policies will then forever be based on the migrant vote, because the sides in the United States, the powers that be, keep it so that the election could go either way, so that they can always get what they want using shady tactics like ballot harvesting in dense cities, densely populated cities, where the billionaires can always pay just a little bit more people to go out and harvest the ballots. Always make it seem like it could go either way, so that it gives you the illusion that it's actually a democracy, when in reality, it's actually an oligarchy where there are shady people funding it, like foreign governments and rich billionaires funding our government from behind the scenes, pulling the politicians' strings like puppet masters. And it will happen is, as the white people become a minority by 2060, the different groups of people will be fighting for control because the white people will not have large enough numbers in order to maintain control over the country. And the cartel will have such a deep-rooted operation, making so much money off of the fentanyl, off of the heroin, off of the crack, off of the meth, off of the cocaine, off of the ecstasy, and then they undercut all of the other guys so that and because they're getting the stuff to make it from the Chinese government, who is sending it over here as a chemical warfare operation in order to kill our people with fentanyl and other drugs and dope us out so that China can be the world's #1 superpower. And if you say anything about that, you're a white supreme pizza, you're a far right extremist, conspiracy theorist. You just looked at the statistics. You just looked at the growth patterns and looked at what the obvious thing that's going to happen. And you probably are not going to want to support them because you're not really into getting your kids hooked on government handouts so that they become a permanent underclass. You would, in fact, prefer them to have the American dream. But the problem is that we cannot have the American dream when we have so many people getting packed into these big cities that it's jacking up the rent sky high, and the illegal immigrants are then depressing the wages, and then everybody's mad because the natives never get their vote the way that they never get to control their own community. It's always going to be based off of people from other country. And then, of course, this is going to breed resentment. And then the cartels are going to start fighting people. And then you're going to have wars for control over the United States. This is Biden's America. This is Kamala Harris's America. This is communist America. We are currently at the Xi variant of COVID. And the next variant is going to be the Jinping variant, followed by the final variant of COVID, the communist variant. Here in this next article from Newsweek, Laura Ingram's January 6th text versus what she said on Fox News. Fox News' Laura Ingraham spoke of, quote, Antifa sympathizers and, quote, being, quote, sprinkled and, quote, among the crowd that stormed the U.S. Capitol. And in fact, that is in fact actually true. There's a guy named John Sullivan. He got in a lot of trouble because he was part of the first group of people that stormed the U.S. Capitol. There were also FBI agents who were telling people to go inside of the Capitol building. There was that kidnapping of Governor Whitmer plot that was set up by the FBI where they were trying to make Trump supporters look bad by staging this kidnapping of the governor. And then the same agents, the same group of people have been doing this around the country a lot. They've been, most of this white supremacist terrorism has been instigated by the FBI because they are on some deep state kick, because they hate white supremacists. They have malice towards them, and it allows them to grab power whenever there is always a crisis. They say that white supremacy is the #1 crisis, that somehow January 6th was like white supreme pizzas were like storming the Capitol, and it was an insurrection, like they were trying to overthrow the government. And let's see what exactly, because okay, so this is from Fake News Week, and Fake News Week, if you're unfamiliar, they claim to be non-biased, but they are incredibly biased. They always put out Trump derangement syndrome. They like to say that because they put out garbage propaganda on the right to control the narrative, that somehow they're not biased. But everybody pretty much. Almost every single person denounced January 6th. We didn't want to have anything to do with it. Almost all of us faced some sort of personal consequences, like getting unfriended from people, losing jobs, burning family connections. Some people lost their lives. Some people committed suicide after they got ostracized and shunned. And essentially what she's saying is that Laura Ingraham wasn't on the side of the looters. Let's see. There was also this... Sorry, here, let me... I have a video here. We're going to watch this video of Liz Cheney. So they're doing this fake January 6th committee where the Democrats are trying to attack Donald Trump because Donald Trump's going to be running for office. Probably he's going to win because he is a winner. And so they have to discredit him. And they got this woman who is Dick Cheney's son. This is Liz Cheney. And they've been, today they were reading, sorry, let me fix this real quick. Sorry about that. So this woman, she's reading text here about let me move on to this next article here from The Hill. Meadows moves to center of Jan 6th probe as House investigators charge ahead with their probe in the Jan 6th attack on the Capitol. Their focus has shifted to a contentious former colleague they increasingly see as a crucial witness, Mark Meadows. Mark Meadows, I think he used to be a senator, and then he was promoted to the chief of staffs, and then they're trying to discredit him. And so in this video that we're going to see, we can see that they're bringing up texts that are related to that Ingraham story. And so here's what she's trying to shame Mark Meadows, trying to make him seem like a bad person for doing the same thing that Laura Ingraham did, which was to denounce January 6th like a good person would.
By the president. Quote, POTUS has to come out firmly and tell the protesters to dissipate.
Sorry, let me...
Someone is going to get killed. In another, Mark, he needs and tell the protesters to dissipate. Someone is going to get killed. In another, Mark, he needs to stop this now. A third, in all caps, tell them to go home. A fourth, and I quote, POTUS needs to calm this shit down. Indeed, according to the records, multiple Fox News hosts knew the president needed to act immediately. They texted Mr. Meadows, and he has turned over those texts. Quote, Mark, the president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. This is hurting all of us. He is destroying his legacy, Laura Ingraham wrote. Please get him on TV. Destroying everything you have accomplished.
I 100% agree with that statement. I'm not sure exactly where this wingnut is trying to go with these accusations, because that would be exactly what you would expect someone to do. Let's say that they were not condoning the riot at the Capitol, which may or may not have been started by the FBI. Then what would she be saying? She would be saying that you did not denounce the riot. So essentially what she's doing is that she is not actually a Republican. She is, in fact, a rhino. She is a turncoat who turns against her own people. She is the son of Dick Cheney, if you're not familiar. Dick Cheney invaded Iraq based on the weapons of mass destruction, disinformation that came from Hillary Clinton's crew. Remember, if you remember, they said that there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, either north, south, east, or west of Baghdad, which should have been your first clue that this is a whole bunch of BS, because you're basically saying, well, it could have been anywhere around Baghdad. So her family is definitely hardcore neocon, definitely not part of the establishment that we want, because what happened is that the Democrats... Here, let's... Hold on. I have to finish my thing. Okay, so the Democrats, here's a chart of who controlled the Congress. This is from 1933 to 2010. Sorry. And you can see this, all this blue area is when the Democrats controlled Congress. So you could see that the Republicans did not control Congress at all up until Clinton in 1995. And then the Republicans shortly took over. And then right after that was 9/11. So there was a period of control which lasted here about 6 years. And then 9/11 happened. And then they did the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. They had us invade Iraq and kill hundreds of thousands of people, along with millions of civilians dying as a result of it. And then they pinned it on the Republicans, because you got to understand that the Democrats, they pretty much had complete control over the military industrial complex up until this time, and then they lost power. It is my personal theory that the Democrats then perpetrated 9/11 in order to blame it on the Republicans, because they invaded Iraq and Afghanistan on false pretenses, and they didn't want to take the blame for it. So it looks to me, from my own investigation, like the Democrats set up the Republicans as a patsy. But I'm getting sidetracked here. Moving back to this video.
Brian Kilmeade texted, quote, "Can he make a statement? Ask people to leave the Capitol," Sean Hannity urged. As the violence continued, one of the president's sons texted Mr. Meadows, quote, "He's got to condemn this shit ASAP. The Capitol Police tweet is not enough," Donald Trump Jr. texted. Meadows responded, quote, "I'm pushing it hard. I agree." Still, President Trump did not immediately act. Donald Trump Jr. texted again and again, urging action by the president. Quote, "We need an Oval Office address. He has to lead now."
Does anybody else think she kind of seems like a psychopath? Like a lying sack of crap?
"It has gone too far and gotten out of hand," end quote. But hours passed without necessary action by the president. These non-privileged texts are further evidence of President Trump's supreme dereliction of duty during those 187 minutes. And Mr. Meadows' testimony will bear on another key question before this committee. Did Donald Trump, through action or inaction, corruptly seek to obstruct or impede Congress's official proceedings to count electoral votes? Mark Meadows' testimony is necessary to inform our legislation.
Okay, so first off, in the prior election, the Democrats did not want to certify the election because they said that the election was illegitimate. So the fact that the Republicans were saying this time around is, it's like the pot's calling the kettle black here. There's legitimate reason to have delayed the election because Mark Zuckerberg gave that $500 million donation to do the private takeover of the county election offices in the swing states. And that was why Joe Biden won. There's no questions asked that the Zucker boxes that were placed 4 square miles in Delaware County brought in a lot more than the Zucker boxes that were spaced out 1,100 square miles in the Republican counties. So there's this little thing. It's called the Help America Vote Act. Help America Vote Act. And you could look it up. They got this election office thing, and somehow their website's like sketchy right now. EAC.gov, the Election Assistance Council. But what it was that in 2002, after the George Bush election, they were saying there was some sketchy stuff with the voting machines because there's been a long history of people doing sketchy things in elections that are very illegal. It's not actually like a rare thing. It's actually a common thing for that to happen. And so they signed this Help America Vote Act, which created a new federal agency to serve as a clearinghouse for election administration information. They provided some funds for the states to improve election administration, replace outdated voting machines, and 3, create a minimum standard for states to follow several key areas of election administration, including voting machine registration. So the registration of the voting machines was under the Help America Vote Act. So there's a problem in that all the regulations for the elections were written from the assumption that it's going to be a state employee who is utilizing this election machinery, because it is election machinery. It is not just one machine. It is a system as a whole. There is a chain of custody that must be followed with the ballots, and the Zucker boxes, they would not have passed all of the state certifications through these clearinghouses. So you got to look up the clearinghouses from the HAVA, HAVA, or Help America Vote Act. And so the states volunteered to comply with the clearinghouse, where they said when there's any sort of changes to the election administration, that they're going to pass it through this clearinghouse. And clearly, when there's a private takeover of county election offices in Democrat counties in swing states, where there's a razor-thin margin and where ballot harvesting boxes could bring in tens of thousands of votes, where you can target these ballot harvesting boxes in specific places based on your privileged knowledge of people from owning Facebook, which is also to a machine which was used in order to censor Republicans who were warning about mail-in ballot fraud. And because of that, it definitely, Facebook became a part of the election machinery at that point in time, should have passed the Help America Act clearinghouse provisions. They should have fully disclosed ahead of time the changes to the federal election processes, like the states had voluntarily done, but they did not. So therefore, the people on January 6th were perfectly reasonable to ask for the election to be delayed. They were not reasonable to storm the Capitol. That was very shameful. That, for me personally, caused a lot of problems for me. A lot of people stopped talking to me for a while. They shunned me until very recently over it. And then after Kyle Rittenhouse, there was a group of people who woke up. And so doing a little bit better there. So where are we at? So we were watching this Mark Meadows video here. Let me go back to this video of what this crazy, corrupt woman was saying.
Legislative judgments. Yet he has refused to give any testimony at all, even regarding non-privileged topics. He is in contempt of Congress. Mr. Meadows also has knowledge regarding President Trump's efforts to persuade state officials to alter their official election results. In Georgia, for instance, Mr. Meadows participated on a phone call between President Trump and Georgia Secretary of State Raffensperger. Meadows was on the phone when President Trump asked the Secretary of State to, quote, find 11,780 votes to change the result of the presidential election in Georgia. We know from the texts Mr. Meadows has turned over that at the time of that call, he appears to have been texting other participants on the call. Again, Mr. Meadows has no conceivable privilege basis to refuse to testify on this topic. He is in contempt of Congress. Third, in the weeks before...
I completely disagree with Ms. Cheney here. The the communications were about the privileged communications with the president. That still covers them under the privilege thing. I don't have enough time to watch this entire video here. Let's move on. What else do we got? Let's see. While I'm sitting here, I got to look at the order of the articles for a second. Okay, because I'm playing this other video, I got to show the other video because I can't just say things and then you just believe me. You got to show proof. Here's the video of the U.S. Capitol Police. Where is it? Sorry. So here's the video of the protesters being let into the Capitol building on January 6th. The state withheld this video because they're shady. They're corrupt government officials. They wanted to punish the protesters. So as you can see here, the U.S. Capitol Police are clearly letting the protesters into the building, and this is not a riot. This is clearly a protest at this point in time. It has not turned into a riot. It does not turn into a riot until shortly after this video was taken. We don't have any audio on it. But I can play you some jazz music. Looking pretty peaceful. See, you can see in the lower video, the cops are just letting them walk in. Nobody's telling them, hey, you're trespassing. As far as they know, this is a government building. They got a right to be there. All right. What else do we got there? So there is the there's a lot of evidence that the FBI got people to go into the building. Do I have that video? Is this? No. See, in this video, this is another video inside of the building that day.
Where the fuck are they? Look, it's a PR war, okay? You have to understand it's an IO war. We can't lose the IO war. We're better than that. Okay? Information operation.
There's gotta be something in here we can fucking use against these scumbags.
There would be the QAnon shaman.
Him and Lawler or whatever.
Cruz, I think Cruz would want us to do this, so I think we're good.
You think this is one fucking day? Millions of Americans are armed
to protect the Constitution of the United States against enemies, foreign and domestic! Go! Watch out! Go! Easy! Fuck you, police!
Take it easy. And away.
Showed up!
Where's the rest of everybody? There's not enough of us. They're going to bring the vets in or something.
Is this the city?
Where the fuck are they? Where are they?
While we're here, we might as well set up a government.
Hey, let's take a seat, people! Let's take a seat!
Nancy Pelosi.
Let's vote on some shit!
All right, gonna move on here. Oops. Here's this next article from Newsweek again. Donald Trump admin and GOP members conspired to overthrow the elections. Text reveal when a member of Congress apologized to Mark Meadows that their objection to the Electoral College votes was unsuccessful. I'm not sure whether or not they purposely used these words, because if you use the word overthrow, that means there was an insurrection that the insurrection overthrew the government. And it doesn't appear from the videos that we watched that the people were trying to overthrow the government, but they believed that the vote had been rigged, in which case the government had been overthrown by a different group of people. So it doesn't actually make sense. Moving on in this next article from Newsweek, Donald Trump's financial records may be finally seen by U.S. House committee. A 3-judge panel may soon decide the former president must turn over 2 years of financial documents. Now, this is another little sneaky one. You could see that fake Newsweek is trying to mislead you. You wouldn't notice it unless you read the other articles in succession and you could see their political bias. Like here in this next article from Newsweek, Mary Trump mocks uncle's rally as, quote, miserable failure, and, quote, after empty seats in Florida. The niece of ex-president Donald Trump, the king of memes, told MSDNC that he is becoming more, quote, isolated, end quote. And so they market this trash as if it's actual news, when in reality it is not actually news. It's an opinion piece that is masquerading itself as news. You can clearly see there is no news heading over here. And I guess the news is that this is Mary's Trump opinion. But the reality is that just because it was Mary Trump said something, that does not actually make that news. These people are really just trying to get you to think like this. They want to walk you through the steps of why you need to hate Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is this bad, corrupt business person who he said grab her by the pussy, and that he was going to build the race wall to keep out the Mexicans who were sending us not their finest people, but they're sending us rapists, drug dealers, criminals, child molesters. It's all true, but then they wanted to flip out about it because people will click on the news article. People share things most when they're angry. And Donald Trump was a celebrity. And because he said grab her by the pussy, that means that he is the imaginary misogynistic pig. This is the imaginary creation that the feminists have created with all of their rhetoric, where there's always one of these big bad misogynists around every corner waiting to rape a woman. They want to put burqas on them and dominate them as if they're inferior because they're misogynists. And in reality, they're just making stuff up in their head. People are good people. But Donald Trump was a good victim because he checked all the boxes. He was a billionaire. He wasn't a known quantity before this, so they were able to inject their own opinions, they meaning the media and the clickbait class, the social media influencers. They want people to side with them, so they say there are people that are coming after me, and they need you to click on the post, to donate to the scam fund, to watch the ad, to subscribe to their channel so that they could fund their operation. And so they do stuff like this, like Mary Trump. Who is she? Mary Trump's just a total loser. Mary Trump has absolutely nothing going for her. She's pretty ugly. She's definitely not very bright. She has no skills, noteworthy talents, and she's pretty much what you would call leftover women. There are the women that are they're like female incels. The guys don't want to date them. And so they need to get some attention, and Newsweek needs to sell some subscriptions. They're low on the Trump derangement crowd, so they need to sell you more Trump derangement so that you will click. They got to make you afraid, because if you're not afraid of the imaginary misogynistic pig and the big bad conservative boogeyman, then you're not going to click, and you're not going to watch CNN and feed their massive corruption behemoths. Here in this next article from Newsweek, Mary Trump says her uncle was disappointed that January 6 riots, quote, didn't work that day, end quote. Ex-president's niece told the MSDNC text by Fox News host during Capitol riots suggests they knew that, quote, they were directly responsible, end quote, for the violence. Well, we just went over the text. We just watched some clips from the insurrection. Let's go back and go watch a little bit more while we have a little bit of a attention span for it.
Where the fuck
This
are
is
they?
the insurrection where people were trying to overthrow the U.S. government.
While we're here, we might as well set up a government.
Hey, let's take a seat, people! I love you guys, you're brothers, but we can't be disrespectful.
They can steal an election, but we can't sit in their chair.
No, we're not putting up with that either. It's just, look, it's a PR war, okay? You have to understand it's an IO war. We can't lose the IO war.
We're better than that.
Okay? Information operation. We can't do it.
I'd say pretty respectful. That's much more respectful than an Antifa-nazi riot. Or AKA a Democrat race riot.
America's a republic. Oh no, this is good stuff.
Hey, quit acting a fool!
No, this is good. This is all good. This is talking about
That dude reminds me of Twatrick. Anybody out there know Twatrick?
He's a good one.
The boop, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we're good.
So there's the dude, he ratted us out, this QAnon shaman dude. First off, he sounds like a lunatic. And then he turned on Trump and the movement, and because he wanted to get a deal from the prosecutors, and then the prosecutors didn't give him a deal, so I guess now he deserves to rot in prison for stabbing us in the back. Goes to show you, you can't trust the state. The Democrats have it out for us. They want to put us in the gulags over this stuff. They claim these people are white supremacists.
Thank you for filling this chamber with patriots that love you and that love Christ.
Alcohol. Ain't a free man. Die on your feet.
So why do people say the FBI was behind this? Let's go through this. What is the logical steps that people go through for this? So there was the kidnapping of Michigan Governor Whitmer. There was FBI agents that were trying to set up Trump supporters because they hated Donald Trump. They were deep state. So they made up this kidnapping plot, got these people into it. And who were they? They were these guys. All right, that's the best I got for you. Oops. That's the best we can do. So here's the weirdos and some anarchist guy. And they convinced these people, they were trying to get them to siege the Capitol there in Michigan. And they got them all to agree to kidnap the governor, and then they busted him. It was a sting operation. And then the same people who were involved in this were promoted to the January 6th investigation. And I've heard that they were in the crowd. There also, too, have been operating a number of these operations where they've been doing these false flag sting operations. They started doing them when they started doing the war on drugs. Moving on, this next article from the BBC News. Trump's son urged father to intervene in January 6th Capitol riot. Donald Trump Jr. has urged his father's aides to get the ex-president to stop the mob. Text messages So the question is, and, the January 6th investigation could be good if it wasn't run by really corrupt Democrats, because we do need to know what did they know and when did they know it, because the New York Police Department became aware of the planned riot at the Capitol and had warned the FBI. The FBI warned the U.S. House Intel Committee and the U.S. Capitol Police. And Donald Trump had put the National Guard on standby and offered extra troops. And then the head of the U.S. Capitol Police turned it down. The National Guard troops, and then the riot happened. So we don't know whether or not Donald Trump was warned, whether or not there was a riot. We don't know how much the Trump administration had to do with stopping the riot before it happened. I'm not sure that they were aware. I don't have any information that they were aware. I wish that this was covered by the January 6th Commission, but they're not trying to do that. They're trying to focus on, right now, this Mark Meadows guy, and saying that because he tried to stop Trump and then Trump didn't respond right away, that he is guilty of he's responsible for the riot. And I don't think so. I have questions, whether or not he knew that was going to happen ahead of time and he just proceeded, whether or not he was taken advantage of by Sidney Powell, who was pushing those crackpot Dominion conspiracy theory nonsense stuff, like about the Hugo Chavez. And who knows about if they got their voting machine code from the Diebold. I don't think necessarily that they would have the same code today. Usually large businesses will remake their code. So I don't think that if they used voting machine code from Diebold that it, necessarily would matter, because they made engineering documentation on how the system functioned, that they then got the machines to pass the certifications for the voting machines. So it doesn't really seem like it matters if it was Diebold code, because the machines, they could have just programmed it to do what they wanted with new code. And like the stuff around Hugo Chavez, that stuff sounded pretty crackpot. Sounded like there was like some QAnon stuff going on. And I don't know if Trump's just an idiot, because, that stuff from Sidney Powell was completely stupid. Like I'm embarrassed for ever having believed it, because like there was like that server that the FBI quote unquote busted with some project, and where did that come from? Came from some like U.S. military general. I can't remember which one, but it's like, oh yeah, Mike Flynn, and then there was another general who is friends with Mike Flynn, who engages in some conspiracy theories. And you can't tell, like, is this dude losing his faculties? Is he just like, are all the military commanders like wingnut conspiracy theorists or something? I don't think so. It would be nice to know, but the commission is so corrupt, we're never going to be able to get an actual answer out of these people, because these people they want to come after Trump. They're not interested in coming after Democrats, because Liz Cheney, let's face it, she's not a Republican. She's a rhino. She works for the Democrats. She is a Republican in name only. She is, in fact, a neocon Democrat who is allied with Hillary Clinton. That's who she is. Her father was Dick Cheney, the guy who invaded Iraq based off of the quote-unquote weapons of mass destruction that were north, east, south, and west of Baghdad, that we needed to go get the bad guys. They were that way, go get them. And we just fell for it, and we spent trillions of dollars on it, and we got ripped off. And Hillary Clinton was doing all that shady stuff with the Steele dossier. She deleted 30,000 emails. Like, she's obviously got some corruption ring going on. And, she's like peddling this Steele dossier, Russiagate nonsense. And then they were using the Russiagate committee in order to harm Donald Trump from getting elected. And this is just 2.0. This is essentially Russiagate 2.0. They're basically using the slow drip, drip, drip of information, and they're over like the text that they over dramatized. They made it seem like it was more of a big deal when it was like, okay, so what, Laura Ingraham and all these Republicans were all denouncing the riots. Okay, so they're good people. They're not in with the race rioters, right? All right, good to go. But none of that matters. They want to go after Trump because Trump is probably going to be the next president of the United States. So they got to stop that, because their cronies would lose money. They got to get their corrupt dude. It's got to be their dude who is coming up. So, hey, I got to keep moving along here. In this next article from the Daily Mail, 89 people are killed by a mysterious disease in South Sudan. World Health Organization task force sent to investigate. The WHO has sent a rapid response team of scientists to collect a sample from sick people after the unknown disease killed 89 people in the northern town of Fangak. So this could possibly be the final variant. It might be the communist variant of COVID. And so we better cut off travel to Africa, because the G variant is so deadly that we need to cut off travel there. And now this is the Jinping variant, which is the precursor to the communist variant. Sorry, I misspoke there a minute ago. So this one is the Jinping variant coming at you. This is the one that you need to get a booster shot for. Might want to get 3 or 4, mix them up. We read some articles, some dude got 20 of these booster shots in one day. He was going around getting shots so people could get their immunization cards, their vaccine passports. Here's this next article from the Gateway Pundit. Watch, Arizona State Representative Mark Finchman reads whistleblower email dated 11/10/2020 disclosing plot by Dems to embed thousands of fraudulent votes into Pima County election. Members of the Arizona legislature met yesterday near Tucson, Arizona, to hold a public hearing on election integrity in Pima County. What do we got?
Once again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today. This is a very important moment in history. You have a right to scrutinize your elections. The elections belong to the people, not to the government. So how did we kind of get to here? It started back in November when Representative Fitcham received an email. So, Representative Fitcham, will you please tell everybody about that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to give you some context and history, on November 10th of 2020, we received an email that was actually included in some of the testimony and evidence from the November 30th hearing last year in Maricopa County. It's important for me to read the email in its entirety because that is what sets the stage for what has happened in the intervening months, over the last 10 months, the investigation that we have engaged in, private sourcing, a few legislators, and certainly pulling public records and the records that we could get access to. This email is, as I said, dated November 10th and is addressed to Criminal Division at the U.S. Department of Justice. This is an anonymous reporting, and I do not want to be included in this investigation. Thank you. Please be advised that Pima County Recorder, located at 240 North Stone Avenue, Tucson, Arizona, 85701 in Pima County, Arizona, and the Democrat Party added, quote, fraud votes, end quote, in the initial count of the vote by mail, VBM, totals released at 8 p.m. on November 3rd, 2020. There are approximately 35,000 fraud votes added to each Democrat candidate's vote totals. Candidates impacted include county, state, and federal election candidates. Through the utilization of the automated ballot count machines in Pima County elections, my understanding is that 35,000 was embedded into each Democrat candidate's total votes. Below are the meeting notes. In a meeting I was invited to by the Democrat Party in Pima County, Arizona on September 10th, 2020. No phones or recording devices were allowed. A presentation was given including detailed plans to embed 35,000 votes in a spread configured distribution to each Democrat candidate's vote totals. When I asked, quote, how in the world would 35,000 votes be kept hidden or from being discovered, end quote. It was stated that spread distribution will be embedded across the total registered vote range and will not exceed the registered voter count, and the 35,000 was determined allowable for Pima County based on our county registered voter count. It was also stated, quote, total voter turnout versus total registered voters determined how many votes we can embed. The embedding will also adjust based on voter turnout, quote, because the, quote, embedded votes are distributed sporadically, all embedded votes will not be found if audited because the embeds are in groups of approximately 1,000. This is so the county recorder can declare an, quote, oversight issue or error as a group of 1,000 is a normal and acceptable error. Maricopa County's embed totals will be substantially larger than Pima due to embeds being calculated based on the total number of registered voters. When I asked, quote, has this ever been tested and how do we know it works, end quote, the response was, yes, this has been tested and has shown significant success in Arizona judicial retention elections since 2014, even undetectable in post-audits because no candidate will spend the kind of funds needed to audit and contact voters to verify votes in the full potential of the total registered voters, which is more than 500,000 registered voters. This year, our Secretary of State has removed precinct-level detail from election night releases so candidates can't see precinct overvotes. This is what I have from this meeting. Just thought I'd report this. Not sure if you can do anything since I was unable to have a recording device at this meeting. Thank you, B. Watson. One additional piece of information about this, Mr. Chairman, is that we were able to identify the IP address where the email came from. It is a computer in Tucson. However, that's as far as we could go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so I don't know what to say about that. That's again, always trust but verify. Never just listen to some political hack just because they said it. But that looks pretty sketchy. Definitely, Mark Zuckerberg definitely did not give $500 million out of the kindness of his heart as a tax donation to Uncle Sam to because he wanted Donald Trump to win, or he didn't want Biden to win. Obviously, Mark Zuckerberg paid that $500 million donation, the $350 million donation. There was another $100 million donation, another $50 million donation. And there's various reports of how much he paid. When I looked into it, I saw 3 different donations totaling $500 million. And it definitely appears as if there was some shady stuff, but it was looking like it was like legal at the time. From what I understand, what Mark Zuckerberg did was legal, but it was like covered under Citizens United. But I don't think that it passed the Help America Vote Act clearinghouses. They were required to by the voluntary state laws that were passed under the Help America Vote Act, where they had a clearinghouse where they were supposed to clear the changes in the election. And it doesn't appear like they made the clearing, like the notifications in the clearinghouse. I don't know everything about how that works. I haven't looked into it enough. It's a legal argument that came maybe a month ago, started popping up. I think it's a pretty good argument because the states volunteered for the clearinghouses. They passed the laws, and that made it so that the states, they had it's like they passed laws related to the election for like a popular vote or something. Those apparently are legally binding. I don't think so because they had the dual electors, but it definitely seems like we need to have an open source voting machine that has like some sort of chain of custody system that isn't so sketchy, because it definitely doesn't really seem like this is a trustworthy system, because you got some billionaire dude running social media that is controlling all of the propaganda that we're getting and allowing groups to organize on the platform for purposes like ballot collection, ballot harvesting. And then you got Mark Zuckerberg funding the county election offices in the swing states. And they were like this Rock the Vote organization was given access to the servers so that they could upload vote totals. And then the machines got hacked there's a number of things that happened that were like very, very sketchy. And it seems like, you know, we'd be pretty much a fool to not move over to an open source based voting solution, because we shouldn't be having these arguments. The system should have a proper chain of custody. I should be able to go through and look at the security cameras that were on the boxes, and I should be able to tell you whether or not somebody went through with an app and scanned the names on the ballot, found the Trump votes and threw them out, or if they did some sort of private vote organization, like money that was getting funded like through some dark money, and they were ballot harvesting and bringing mass amounts of ballots at once. There's supposed to be security cameras on these ballot boxes. We're supposed to know where each of the ballot goes, identically to how a bank knows where each and every single one of the bills go. Because if you don't, then somebody's probably going to rob your bank, because they do that. People are sketchy. If you think that people aren't sketchy, I got a bridge to sell you. It's downtown Eugene. If you want to just deposit $100 in my crypto wallet, you can have the bridge downtown Eugene. It's all yours. Here, moving on in this next article from Fox News. White House cuts Taiwan minister's video feed after map depicts Taiwan and China as different colors. As more Americans taste the bitter fruit of Democratic policies and contrast it with the prosperity of pre-pandemic Trump years, the Democrats face a reckoning in the 2022 and beyond. And oops, did I just read the wrong story? I just read the next story down. I'm sorry. The White House cut video feed from Taiwan minister last week during a summit after she differentiated China and Taiwan on a map. Sources told Reuters, man, that was just a knife in the back. I mean, that was raw. That was savage. That was like, I can't believe you did that to our homie, Taiwan. Because Taiwan is like, you know, most of the semiconductors in the world are getting manufactured in Taiwan through that TSMC. Like, we need these people, or else China is going to have complete hegemony over there. They're not going to have any sort of checks and balances. And Biden has said that he's going to back up Taiwan repeatedly over and over again. So this is kind of coming out of left field, dude. It's like, I thought you were our homie, and then you just coming up and just knife right up in the back. Here in this next article from Fox News. Democrats will look to illegal immigrants for votes in 2022. As more Americans taste the bitter fruit of Democratic policies and contrast it with the prosperity of the pre-pandemic Trump years, the Democrats face a reckoning in 2022 and beyond. Yep, they going down. There's no way that Biden can recover from this botched Afghan exit. I mean, the dude just bozoed it. He just left in the middle of the night, left $85 billion worth of gear. And then he left a whole bunch of troops in Iraq. And he said they had to prevent ISIS from coming back. And so then he tucked tail and ran in the middle of the night in Afghanistan. And then the Taliban got all that military equipment, and then ISIS came back. And then he wrecked the U.S. economy with these vaccine mandates, with printing up trillions of dollars worth of money, causing rapid inflation. And the only way that they can vote, because their policies are so unpopular, is that they need to get access to the Latinos' children so they can get the Latinos' children to vote blue no matter who by getting hooked on socialism. See, as long as you open up the borders so that the cartels take over the southern borders and you get the Latinos' kids hooked on socialism, then they'll just vote blue no matter who. Because the Democrats are the party of the non-whites and the white feminists who are opposed to the white people because they figured out the white people's birth rate is so low that they're going to be a minority by 2060. So they stabbed us in the back. And now they're banking on open borders, bringing in enough people to make up for the low birth rate from all the failed Democrat policies. And it's the only way that they're able to keep the scam going is by bigotry against white conservative Americans by falsely labeling them as white supremacists. And then that'll make the non-whites then target these people for hatred, hostility, violence, harassment, canceling, firing, ostracism, shunning. And then the Democrats get what they want. Because then at that point in time, the white man is no longer the majority of people. So then they can get what they want, which is socialism. Because after the Xi variant comes the Jinping variant. And then after the Jinping variant is the communism variant. Here's this next article from the Daily Mail. Taliban have beheaded or hanged dozens of prisoners. UN report reveals more than 100 former Afghan national security forces and others have been killed since the Taliban's August takeover from China Joe Biden's complete miserable failure exit from Afghanistan. The U.S. Human Rights Council heard on Tuesday. So now that the U.S. is gone, now ISIS is back. Now the Taliban got them burqas on the women. Now the women are all locked up, getting raped and beat. And they're raping boys over there because that's what the Taliban do. The Taliban practice this sick practice with they call bachi boys. They like rape the boys. And so now they're just beating and raping and so now ISIS is controlling up over there. And now they're coming here because very soon there will be the Jinping variant of COVID, followed by the communism variant of COVID. So you might as well start learning Mandarin Chinese because the Chinese are taking over and the Democrats sold us out. And there's just nothing we can do because their attacks on hating white people work so good. The teachers' unions are in on them. And so they're teaching the kids to hate white people at a very young age nowadays. So next we're going to have cartels that are taking over because the Latinos are a permanent underclass now under Biden's open border policies. Now that they're hooked on the socialism and the handouts from the government, now the cartels are going to become very powerful. They're going to be selling all this heroin from the Taliban and the fentanyl from the Chinese imported in through the cartels, coming up through the open borders where they're raping the women migrants and using the kids to distract the Customs Border Patrol while the cartels funnel in enough fentanyl to kill everyone that you ever met. And then they're going to start, now the white people are going to start becoming a minority. So the cartels will start fighting for control over America. And so we're going to have these gangs that are in control, which are going to cause a lot of violence, which will make hot warfare here in the United States. And then the Taliban is going to then resume exactly what they're doing. And then the Chinese are going to start grabbing more and more land. And then they're going to promote more and more mass migration, because the more and more mass migrants human traffickers send over here, the more money that they get, the more destruction the migrants cause on our society. And then it's all going to break down, and then there's going to be a gigantic global war. That is my own prophecy. It's just my own prediction. It's my own opinion. I'm pretty sure that these fascist punks are trying to do some World War III stuff. But again, that's my own opinion. This is the news. Anything else is just my opinion. Moving on to this next article. People smugglers are using custom-built death trap dinghies to transport migrants across channel. Investigators believe many of these large gray or black unbranded vessels have little or no commercial use and are purportedly manufactured by the smugglers. So the smugglers they got a industry going on here where they are able to make billions and billions of dollars smuggling in these illegal migrants in, and then they congregate in the large cities, and then the rent gets jacked up, and then it pushes the native-born population out of the cities, and then it causes things like in LA, 1/3 of the city is from Mexico and does not speak English. So what happens is that the migrants will slowly start to replace the native populations, and then it slowly will then no longer be our country. It'll be too expensive to live in these big cities, and then we're going to have to deal with these cartels taking over, because these people are making billions and billions of dollars smuggling in narcotics and smuggling in humans. And we cannot allow this to happen into the future, because it's a national security threat. Now, the Democrats, they want to say that anybody who opposes this is like some far-right boogeyman. But this is just like some common sense stuff. It's like, there's a rate that immigration can be at where it's a blessing, where everybody wins. And then there's a rate where it's disastrous. And this is definitely approaching the disastrous point. Now, at this point in time, many European countries have built their own walls, and they're using military tactics to keep the migrants out. But they keep coming because they want that good life. And you can't blame them for that. But the reality is that when we have this many migrants coming in, they can't get that good life. They're going to become a permanent underclass, and then they're going to we have a large potential for dystopian nightmare future. We can get Big Brother take over, where the liberals start brainwashing people to be anti-racist because they want to keep this demographic going. So it could be like 1984, where they hook you up to the machines and then put your eyeballs out like that, and then make you watch anti-racist videos to train white people to not be racist, because they don't want you to kick out the new voter base. They want the illegal immigrants to be able to vote in the election, and they want the borders to be open so that they get their way every single time. As long as their politics are siding with the migrants, then they get their way every time, because every single year their voter base gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So the more millions and millions and millions of these migrants they bring in here, the more it solidifies their voter base. And that's the whole scam that they've been running the whole time. And they're snake politicians. They're just straight up doing this stuff right in front of your face. These people are the biggest snakes. They don't care about you and your family. All they care about is gaining power and maintaining power, because in order to actually gain this power, you have to concentrate 100% on it. In order to do it, in order to maintain it, it's like you got the ring. My precious, you got to maintain, you got to keep that ring. You can't lose the ring, right? And slowly these people then become extremely intolerant of the native populations because the elections then become based on the migrants. All the policies are based on now getting the migrants to vote for you because in order to continually spend money, they need to get more migrants in to be able to make the money so that they can spend the money. And they want to continue doing this, just racking up trillions of dollars in debt until our economy is forced to grow. And then you have to have the borders open because if you don't, we're going to be bankrupt. You know, it's like maybe they could stop with the policies that are causing the birth rate in the United States to be so low that we can't grow. You know, because if our own people had a birth rate that was the same as the Muslims, which is about 3.3 births per woman, then we would absolutely not need any migrants in order to grow our populations so that they can continue to spend all of this money. But really, the answer is just not to spend all of this money so that we're not stuck in this situation where we need to bring in all of these migrants to replace all of the people because instead of making babies, instead we were all focusing on ourselves, this me, my career, my next promotion, and we basically sold our family out for this feminist shit. And then now we're stuck in this pattern where now we have to continually bring in more and more and more migrants to make up for all of the bad politics. You know, at a certain point in time, you got to kind of just say, hey, you know what? This sucks. We just kind of have to can it with this whole like liberalism shit because like our birth rate is 1.64 right now in the United States. The Muslims' birth rate is 3.3. Doesn't take an idiot to realize that, well, if we flood the place with a whole bunch of Muslims, that, well, they're going to take over at a certain point in time. And then they're saying that anybody who is against that is like racist, you know, because you're like white and there was like some racist white people in the past. And so that means that you're not allowed to endorse any sort of restrictions on my immigration because you're white. So let me get this straight. Because I'm white, I'm not allowed to oppose the Democrats. Okay, and if I do oppose the Democrats on this, then that means that I'm quote unquote racist. Okay, so now you can see that the Democrats have rigged our politics in order to demonize white people through demagoguery because they want to control the elections, and then the mass migration is their key because they don't like the way the white people vote because they vote to protect the native population. And they're in with the globalist population. They want the unlimited meritocracy. They say, no, we're not racist. We're a meritocracy. We only take the best. Like, okay. So then you mean for the 99.999% of the people, then they don't get shit, right? Oh, okay. You see, then now you can see exactly where they're coming at from this. Is these people are able to get in control by painting white people as racist and then utilizing these immigration laws in order to boost the population of the migrants in order to outnumber the native people. And then once that happens, then the native people don't really ever get to have their say in politics in their homeland anymore. And that's just messed up. I'm taking too long on this. I don't know what to say. Probably lost everybody. I'm gonna turn this show off. Hey, thanks for watching RSS commentary on, what day is it? Wednesday, December 15th. Again, my name is Cale McCollough, aka The Captain. And as I say every time, farewell, sayonara, aloha, peace be with you, and Godspeed in your journeys.